Episode 279, Throwing Stones and Holding Hands.
I just can't. Eleanor chuckled as she wiped a tear from her eye. The last thing she expected to hear was Raphael stating Emma had a hollow heart. I am so happy I didn't miss today. Emma grabbed a handful of her dress, embarrassed by Raphael's words. What was so wrong with what she said? Everyone else was referring to those people as barbarians, so she repeated it. Raphael was going there to kill them, so what was all of this about being hollow? I don't want to be a part of this group anymore. Duchess, I will speak with you another day when there are no misfits around you, Emma said, looking in Heather and Eleanor's direction before she walked away. Finally. Initially, that girl seemed so sweet and innocent, but she was just a social follower. Should we stay here while the queen is alone with her husband? I feel like we might hear something we are not supposed to, Eleanor said, hinting at the fact the queen and king could be working up a future prince right now. We could walk further down, enough to see if she comes out, Alessandra said, pointing down the hall. The other two women agreed, so they started to walk away from the door. Eleanor, were you at the ball? I was, but I remained out of sight, so you might not have seen me. I left early since my companion for the night abandoned me. I still feel the need to strangle Bryce for leaving me and not giving me a heads up, Eleanor said, pounding her fist into the palm of her hands. His solo departure gave the young women something to talk about. Bryce? Alessandra asked, feeling that the name was familiar, but she couldn't put a face to it. My best friend. We always stick together during parties since we never have a date. He's my way of warding off curious men who want to court me. I have no interest in getting married. Quite frankly, I wouldn't mind becoming a spinster. I have more interest in writing books than spending my time looking for a husband, said Eleanor. You write books? Do you sell them in town, or is it something that you keep for yourself? I sell them in town under another name. I know no one would be interested if they knew the daughter of a brothel owner wrote the book. Honestly, Duchess, I am surprised, but not when it comes to you. You had the title of being cursed, but now that you are a Duchess, I didn't expect to be talking with you. It is normal for people who were once outcasts and were given a new opportunity not to hang around us, Eleanor said, pointing at herself and Heather. It was refreshing to see that Alessandra had not jumped in to speak about her father's business and had welcomed Heather to their table. Eleanor could picture herself as a lifelong friend of Alessandra. This was surprising since she rarely had any female friends, as they would always claim to get tossed in the red light district if they became her friend. It would be wrong of me to be once bullied and then join in on mocking someone else just because of my new status. I cannot find it in my heart to be that way. Besides, you are hilarious, Eleanor, and I admire your confidence when you stand up to others like Sophia. That woman is... Alessandra trailed off, not knowing the right words. Delusional? Too full of herself? She honestly did not sleep with your husband. She can openly lie since her reputation for falling into men's beds is quite strong. She is so full of herself that she thinks the princess was named after her. But if she paid attention in school, she would know Princess Sophia was named after a former queen. A bird brain, I tell you. Eleanor shook her head. Alessandra chuckled, amused by how disappointed Eleanor was when it came to Sophia. What about you, Heather? Do you have any hobbies? Heather sighed and stopped walking. Now that it was just the three of them, she wanted to say what was on her mind. Duchess, I owe you for offering me a place to sit, but I must ask, are you being nice to me in hopes of getting information about Priscilla? I've seen the whole nice to everyone act before, and I want to be certain I am not being fooled. Alessandra wasn't the slightest bit offended by Heather's assumption. It was customary for Heather to think she would be used to go against Priscilla, no matter how anyone looked at it. Heather had no one to turn to, so it would be a prime opportunity for Alessandra to use her. I have no intention of using you to get information about Priscilla. Edgar would offer it to me without me having to ask. I try not to think about her and don't even want to run into her. I am being nice to you because that is how I am. Not because I want to use you, said Alessandra. Thank you. It is just hard to know what people are plotting. I no longer want to be used by anyone or forced to do anything. I have been doing it all my life because of my mother. I sincerely want to apologize again for showing up with his mother that day. Heather apologized. She continued. I cannot lie and say I didn't harbor any ill feelings for you when we met. I desperately wanted to be in your place to satisfy his mother. I am grown, but it was hard to go against her. Priscilla is scary, and you should be thinking about her. Alessandra didn't want to tell Heather she was plotting to deal with Priscilla to stop her from meddling in her marriage. Tides could turn where Heather would be back in Priscilla's good graces. She was aware of what type of person Priscilla was since she was behind Jennifer's death. Alessandra began to walk again, but the force of something connecting to the side of her exposed face stopped her. Duchess! Heather exclaimed, concerned for Alessandra when blood started to trickle down her face. Eleanor panicked at seeing a stone on the floor next to the mask Alessandra was wearing a moment ago. She bent down to pick up the mask to cover Alessandra's face and deal with the wound.
Episode 280.
Eleanor looked in the direction the stone was thrown from
holding hands.
and spotted a couple of women running away. She only saw the back of them, but it wouldn't be hard to point out who they were from their dresses. Idiots, she thought. If not for Alessandra bleeding, she would have chased after the women to repay what they had done. Then there was the mask that fell off, which she wanted to put back on quickly since Alessandra would not want anyone seeing her face. Eleanor saw what looked to be old cuts, but didn't think Alessandra required the mask. She was still quite pretty, and Eleanor was curious about the real story behind the mask. Why did no one question why a young girl had to hide her face? Alessandra stood still, trying to wait out the pain in her head. We need to put some snow on it, said Eleanor. I will get the queen, Heather said. She would say it was foolish of anyone to throw a stone at the Duchess while they were in the palace, but worse things had happened at parties she attended. Heather wasn't present for the entire gathering, but she didn't think there was a reason for anyone to throw a stone at Alessandra. She was curious about what was said in the room before she arrived. Heather left Alessandra and Eleanor's side. Going back to the room Hazel had walked in to speak with her husband. Heather was nervous to disrupt whatever was happening inside the room, but they needed the queen and king. Heather knocked on the door and said as loud as she could, Queen Hazel, you must come quickly. Someone threw a stone at the Duchess. Heather heard a muffled yell coming from the inside, but it didn't sound like Hazel. It sounded more like the... What? Tobias flung open the door. Did you just say? Heather stepped back, looking at the king in shock. His cheeks and neck bore the faint color of the paint Hazel had on her lips. Heather shook her head, wanting to stay on track. I was walking with the Duchess, and out of nowhere a stone was thrown at her. Her head has a small bruise. God fucking damn it, Tobias cursed, angered by the news. He thought he had misheard what was said at the door. No, he was hoping he had misheard it. Is Edgar still in the palace? He asked, closing the door behind him to give Hazel privacy to straighten herself. He left a little while ago. Do you want me to check if... No, Tobias quickly replied. If Edgar were to return before they had the culprit, he would flip the palace upside down. Tobias already had a lot on his plate, so why did someone have to add this to it? Someone dug their grave today, and as king, there was hardly anything Tobias could do to save them. "Take me to the Duchess now," he ordered Heather. "Right away," Heather answered, leading the king to the Duchess. "Pardon me if this is rude, but should we not call her husband?" It didn't take long for Tobias to spot Alessandra leaning back against a wall, while another woman tended to her. "You've been around Edgar, so you already know the answer. Edgar doesn't take too well when anyone tries to harm the people he cares for. Now it is his wife who has already lived a hard life. The man is going to see red when he returns." "Duchess?" Tobias said once he was in front of Alessandra. Eleanor curtsied and stepped out of the way for the king to handle the matter. She considered taking this time to go find the woman she had spotted running away from the scene. "Are you all right, Alessandra?" Tobias asked, leaning down to get a better look at the wound. Had it been thrown lower, it would have hit her eye and caused serious damage. "It stings a bit, and I have a headache," Alessandra replied. The ice Eleanor had wrapped in a cloth had been helpful. Tobias looked carefully at the small open wound. It didn't seem too deep, but it was swelling. They could save her from a scar if they took care of it now. "You there," Tobias stopped a passing-by maid. "Get the royal doctor and tell him to come to my private room right now."
"Yes, Your Highness."
"Did either of you see who did this?" Tobias asked Heather and Eleanor. They needed to move quickly in case the culprit would try to leave. Heather shook her head as she was more focused on Alessandra to look around for who threw it. "I did," Eleanor replied. "I saw a small group of women running away from the direction it was thrown. I didn't see their faces, but I can identify their dresses. One of them looked familiar." "Was it—" Eleanor paused to think. "Heather, take the Duchess inside my private room where the Queen is," Tobias said, then looked at the young woman he believed was Eleanor. He had seen her with her mother, who was known as the Madam in the red light district. "Come with me to identify the woman." Eleanor was pumped up, ready to call out the people who had done this. And if the king could turn his back for a moment, she had a good aim to make them feel what the Duchess was experiencing. It was amusing how they said she was not a lady because of her father's business, but then they went around throwing stones at someone. Eleanor led Tobias in the direction the women had run off in. Most likely, they were heading back to the room to get their things and leave. It would have been satisfying if Edgar was still in the palace, as heads were bound to roll. But Eleanor had a feeling that once he found out, there would still be chaos, even if the king were to deal with the culprit. Eleanor and Tobias received odd stares from the other young women who didn't have the slightest clue what was going on. Eleanor inspected their dresses as she passed by to make sure they weren't any of them. One person threw the stone, but the others around that person should have checked on the Duchess. "No way," Eleanor said the moment they entered the room. "I knew that dress was familiar. You were sitting right in front of me, Sophia. How I could forget who wore that tacky design is beyond me." Sophia bit her lip, panicking at the sight of the king. She was on her way out of the palace when she remembered her bag was still in the room. She figured she had time to collect it, as she had asked the maid to send notice she was ready for her carriage, which would take a moment to come from wherever it was parked. "What do you want from me, Eleanor?" she asked, choosing to play dumb about why the king might be here with Eleanor. "Don't play stupid. But then again, you are naturally stupid for throwing a stone at the Duchess." "It is her, Your Highness. I saw her running away with 3 young ladies," said Eleanor. "Me? Throwing a stone at the Duchess? You must think we are in the filthy red light district where everyone acts a fool. We are in the palace, dear Eleanor. No one goes around throwing stones, and I am not a fool to harm the Duchess," Sophia replied. In her opinion, Eleanor's words were not credible for anyone to believe a woman of Sophia's status would throw a stone. It would look like Eleanor was simply jealous and wanted to point fingers. "Julia!" Tobias called the woman dressed differently from the other maids. She was the one to ensure the women present at the gathering and all the servants were acting appropriately. "Tell the servants to bring all the ladies back into this room. Now!" he yelled, his voice sounding like thunder in the room. They were moving too slowly for his liking.
Yes, Your Highness.
Julia bowed, confused by how angry Tobias was.
Gather the ladies,
she ordered the maids in the room. Sophia's palms started to sweat. She was standing with her friends when she threw the stone, but separated from them afterward. She didn't trust that, if pressured by the king, they wouldn't admit it was her. Sophia had known these women for a couple of years and hung out with them frequently, but at this moment they would not lie for her. If the shoe were on the other foot, she would expose them right away to avoid being punished by the king. Eleanor found Sophia to be stupid for prolonging admitting it was her. It was possible that any of the other women could have been the culprit, but judging by how Sophia was the only one trying to run away, and looked like she would pass out at any moment, it was her. The king was not in a good mood as the wife of his friend was struck, so why drag this out? All the young women started to enter the room slowly, and right away, Eleanor was able to spot the three others. These women not clashing in their dresses turned out to be a good thing. There were no dresses alike to say she had seen wrong. "Now that you are all here, does anyone want to step forward and tell me who the fuck struck this Duchess, Alessandra Collins, with a stone? Show yourself while I am being nice. If you prolong this, I won't stop the Duke from having your head," said Tobias.
Episode
Tobias bit his
281.
lip to refrain from
Throwing
cursing at the
stones
women
and holding
after
hands.
no one wanted to speak up. Your catty moments at these events are normally ignored, but to attack someone is where a line must be drawn. A duchess was injured inside the palace. A crime befitting of imprisonment or, as the old laws would have it, getting the hand the stone was thrown with cut off. If no one wants to come forward, I'll have to interrogate all of you and it will not be pretty. The women chattered amongst themselves, trying to find the culprit. No one wanted to be on the king's bad side or spend the day getting interrogated. "Eleanor, is it?" Tobias looked behind him at the woman who led him there. "Identify the woman you saw." Eleanor stepped in front of Tobias, and one by one, she pointed at the women involved in the matter. She remembered them as Sophia's friends, who she once said shared the same brain as Sophia. Tobias stared at the four women who found difficulty in breathing. "Which one of you threw the stone?"
It was Sophia.
"Liar!" Sophia exclaimed, turning to the woman who was once her friend. "Do you all have nothing better to do than lie on my good name? I did not harm the Duchess." Ava, the young lady who exposed Sophia, shook her head. Now that the king was involved, she could not keep it a secret. Her father would beat her if he was to be informed of this.
Sophia was the one to throw the stone, but it was not meant for the Duchess.
Eleanor felt uncomfortable when Ava looked at her, pointing out that the stone Alessandra was hit by was meant for her. Sophia stomped her foot down, angered by the lies being spewed. If Alessandra had not stepped forward, the rock would have hit Eleanor and they wouldn't be in this position. The only reason all of them ran was that the stone hit Alessandra instead of Eleanor. The king would not be present had Eleanor been the one hit. Sophia only wanted to get back at Eleanor for what was said at the table. Had Emma been present, Sophia would have targeted her instead. It was just a small stone that should not cause that much damage. The Duchess is overreacting, she thought. Is what she said true? Tobias asked the two others, who shook their heads as they vouched for Ava's words. He didn't think highly of the three, even though they weren't the ones to harm Alessandra. They had most likely thought it was funny at the moment and pushed for the stone to be thrown. It wasn't too long ago that Hazel was walking with Alessandra and could have been the one struck, so it added to his rage. Tobias was only keeping his cool in front of the other women who were not involved with the stone throwing and looked afraid. "Guards!" Tobias yelled to the men outside. "Arrest this woman here!" He pointed at Sophia. "And have her chained in the dungeon. No one is allowed to visit her."
Your Highness,
Sophia said, dropping to her knees. She had worked too hard for the status she now had for it to be ruined. Getting thrown into a dungeon would sully her, and if she were to get out of this unharmed, she would be made an outcast, even by her husband.
I didn't mean to aim it at the Duchess. She stepped forward at the wrong time.
"Please?" She touched his leg. It took all his strength not to fling the woman off his foot. "Get off of me." He said the words in a low tone. "Did you honestly think I would go? Oh, it was not meant for the Duchess. Let me set you free. You injured someone you didn't intend to hit, and instead of checking on the person, you ran. An apology would have saved your life. You will learn to live well without your hands." Sophia's eyes widened upon hearing her punishment would be to lose her hand. She could not remember the last day someone was given this punishment.
My king,
she cried, gripping him tighter.
I will apologize to the Duchess, please. I cannot live without my hands.
It is better than not living, Tobias thought as he tried to wiggle her off his foot. Though the punishment was harsh, it was not the worst she would face. He would stop Edgar from killing her, but Edgar had plenty of ways to make someone kill themselves. "Fucking damn it," he cursed, having no choice but to roughly yank her off of him. But the woman kept bawling and crawled back to his feet. The guards Tobias called upon rushed to separate Sophia from the king. They grabbed her arms, dragging her away from being close to the king and to the dungeon that awaited her. Sophia thrashed and turned in their hold, trying her best to escape.
I'll apologize,
she cried.
Let me speak to the Duchess. Bring my husband.
These were the last words heard from Sophia as she was taken out of the room. Eleanor almost felt bad at the state of Sophia crying her eyes out. Almost. The woman deserved it for harming the Duchess, who had done nothing wrong and, worst of all, trying to throw a stone at her in the first place. If Eleanor's father were to hear of this, he would not let the matter go easily. "The three of you are banned from the palace for the rest of the year," Tobias said to the three remaining women. The palace was already full of people who stood by, watching bad things happen, and would do nothing. It didn't need these three being added to the list. "Your families will be informed of what happened today. Leave the palace at once." Tobias proceeded to walk out of the room, not wanting to hear any more crying. Someone had to become strict with these women, as their hatred for one another was turning deadly. Had it been Hazel who was struck, he would have had all four of the women hang. He was being lenient with the three, as Edgar would take care of them. He wasn't going to do anything further to steal Edgar's revenge on those who were involved in his wife being hurt. "I don't want to be around when Edgar returns," Tobias thought as he left the room. Meanwhile, Eleanor enjoyed the fear and panic in the women's eyes. Not just the three, but everyone else. The realization of how much they could lose if they harmed the Duchess was settling in. This was not the usual women going at each other like normal. Now there was a husband involved who would not hesitate to ruin their life for his wife, and Alessandra had a good relationship with royalty. Eleanor enjoyed how the balance in the social world was going to shift soon, since Alessandra was proving, without even trying, that she should not be messed with. Someone who was once bullied was rising above everyone else. Eleanor didn't like Alessandra being hit by something meant for her, but she was glad Sophia was dealt with. Sophia had her fair share of bullying women and getting away with it. "I owe her," Eleanor thought, since Alessandra got hurt because of her. If Alessandra were to ever need Eleanor to find out information from the red light district, have her back in future gatherings, or whatever she needed, Eleanor would not hesitate to help her. From this day on, she was loyal to the Duchess.